Today, for my great recording, I want to talk about Nina Simone. Now, if I was to ask you to think of a name or a piece of music by Nina Simone, I wonder what would come to your mind. I'm guessing for most people it would be the song My Baby Just Cares for Me. Now, if I was to tell you that that song was recorded in 1957 on her first ever LP, Nina Simone, A Little Girl Blue, as it's now known, and that it didn't become a hit or even played on the radio as a regular item until 1987, 30 years later, thanks to the fact that Chanel put it in their advert, which was shown on UK TV at the time, and then it spread across Europe, and then it became a world famous hit. I think some of you might be surprised, but when I mention the name Nina Simone, maybe you're thinking also of singer, a vocalist, around at the same time as, well, a bit later, but influenced by Billie Holiday, Ella Fitzgerald, Dina Washington, Sarah Vaughan, those massive entities of female vocalists. But I don't see her like that. I see her as a pianist who sings. And today, in this great recordings, talking about A Little Girl Blue by Nina Simone, I want to focus on this amazing, amazing album recorded in December 1957. But before I do that, I'm going to split this video into chapters so you can just jump to the music. I will play excerpts from the album later on. I want to talk about Nina Simone, the person, because I think it's important to get a concept of who she is, what her background was, or maybe importance is a bit egotistical or a bit pretentious. What I mean is it's maybe interesting. So Nina Simone was born with the name of Eunice Kathleen Waymon. She was born on February the 21st in 1933, and she died in April 21 in 2003 at the age of 70. So if you look at Wikipedia, she's described as American singer, songwriter, pianist, composer, arranger, and civil rights activist. And they say the genres that she played was classical and folk and gospel and blues and jazz and R&B and pop. You know, it's just a mishmash. But having read her life story and having myself worked with so many young, classically trained musicians who are desperately aspiring to have a career as soloists in classical music world, or even orchestral members, I'm fully aware of what must have happened in her background, and it plays a very big role in this very first album from 1957. So imagine this, she's the sixth child of 8 from a very poor family. Very early on, it's noticed that she has an exceptional talent for piano. A family friend, or maybe someone from the church, I'm not sure exactly who, arranged some money for her to study the piano. And at the age of 12, she gave her very first classical music performance, solo performance. And at that event, obviously, her parents came to watch their daughter perform. Her parents weren't allowed in the hall. Nina Simone, of course, was so angry that she said, I'm not going to play unless my parents can come in. And in the end, her parents were allowed to go in and sit at the back just to avoid the organisers' embarrassment. That was the world that she grew up in, of course. But so did all the other great musicians of the time. But I don't want to spend too much of this talk talking about that topic of racism and how it 20th century music and those things. That's for another day maybe. But what I want to talk about is the Nina Simone, or the Eunice Wayman of that time. Imagine this. She's 12 years old. She's given a phenomenal classical concert. And at the age of 17, this lady has arranged the funding for her to go off to New York for the summer to study with the Juilliard School of Music with Carl Fribourg, who was a professor of piano at Juilliard at the time. So now, as an organizer for these young musicians in Belgium, these exceptionally gifted young musicians of the Young Belgian Talent Charity, I know exactly what it's like, because we too help young musicians go off to cities around Europe and the world to do summer courses and summer studying in preparation for them getting into the conservatoires of their choices. So there she was in New York studying, and after the 3-month summer period she applies for the conservatoire in Philadelphia, and sadly she's not accepted. Now it appears from the history books that she gave an exceptional audition. So she expected to get in, and she was very angry, disappointed when she wasn't. She believed it was down to racism, and maybe it was, I don't know. But what I do know is apparently there were 79 other applicants that year, and only 3 got in. So the chances are that she wouldn't have got in anyway. So in my world, here in the 21st century, when a musician doesn't get in first time, we have coaches and counsellors helping them through the disappointment. We help them find other conservatoires to go to, or they take a year out and then they reapply again the next year. All of those assets and resources obviously were not available for the young Eunice Wayman. So she started giving private lessons on piano and being an accompanist and to a vocal coach in a local music college. So that was her life. By the time she was 20, she started playing in music clubs and nightclubs. And she was made to sing and play, because the owner of the club was very keen that she should be singing to entertain and not just playing classical music. Because you can imagine she was still focused on classical music. That's what she wanted to do. That is where her career was going, or so she thought. So, and I can imagine it must be pretty intimidating to be singing around at the time when Billie Holiday is still being played a lot on the radio, Ella Fitzgerald and Sarah Vaughan and Dinah Washington. I mean, can you imagine surrounding yourself with those and following on from people like Bessie Smith? It must have been really daunting prospect to sing in public when you think of yourself as a classical musician. Anyway, it seems that a wealthy businessman was so into what she was doing, and she had sort of developed a small group of followers at that point, that he financed a demo tape recording. And I think it was him who eventually managed to get her contract for this album, the first album to come out. And so it was recorded in late in December in 1957. And I think what's interesting is now she's kind of basically her mid-20s. She recorded 14 tracks in one day. So apparently she was in the studio for 13 hours. And she had 2 musicians with her. Jimmy Bond, who was a bassist, who himself was 24 and who had studied at the Juilliard School from 1950 to 1955. So you got these 2 mid-20s people playing together, maybe feeling that they were looking on the chance of breaking through into the big world. One having followed all the classical training in the school that she would have loved to have gone to. And then she had a guy called Albert Heath, a drummer, Tootie, I think was nicknamed, and he was 22. So this young group of musicians together over a period of 13 hours, recorded what I believe to be one of the greatest albums of all time. So where do we start with this album? It's interesting to think of it as her trying to get everything in that she needed to get in to be seen or recognized in a way as being a classical pianist who plays jazz or blues. But it's clear straight away that her singing is so amazing. And I'm putting it down to not just the fact of the timbre or the sound of her voice, but the fact that because she's such an innate, natural musician with all the training she's got, she knows all about phrasing. And when you listen to the excerpts that I'm going to play you now, you will see sometimes the absolute beauty and delicacy in her playing that it does make you wonder sometimes. I wonder if she had got in. I wonder if she had studied at the Juilliard. What could she have become as a classical pianist? But thank goodness we have this wonderful time machine, and we, sitting on this planet in this universe, have fantastic technology around us that allows us to bring her back into our living rooms as if she was there in front of us, and we can witness this day, this one day of recording. So without further ado, I'm going to start by opening with the opening song, Mood Indigo. Now, what I think is great about the Mood Indigo song, and I've got some notes here on the composers because sometimes I get my things mixed up when I'm improvising. Of course, it's Duke Ellington. If you see this as the opening track of your first album, there's this tremendous bass line that just gets the whole thing moving. And the introduction, which I'm going to play, her piano playing, will go through a whole sequence of, if you like, Bach extemporizations into some blues, into some jazz, and then everything will stop and she will sing. And I tell you, at that moment, when you get a chance to hear this on your own systems, it's amazing. She's in the room. So let's just start this off.
Never been blue till you've had that mood indigo. That feeling goes stealing down to my shoes while I just sit here and sigh. Go along blues. I always get left that mood indigo since my baby said goodbye. And in the evening when the lights are low, I'm so lonely I could cry, for there's nobody who cares.
You see what I mean? Her piano playing, she knows exactly when to hold back and just rely on the little bit of the brush on snare drum and bass, just with a little hint of piano. It's that subtlety in the way that she sings and in the way that she plays that makes her such a great, great musician. But I'm going to play you now a little bit of the second track on the album, which is called Don't Smoke in Bed. And I found the lyric a little bit annoying at first, but you know, it's the musicianship is so sublime that I just want to share with you. The song apparently is written by a guy called Willard Robison. I don't know who that is, but just listen to this. This could be Liszt at the beginning. And now into sort of Bach.
I left a note on his dresser, and my old wedding ring with these few goodbye words. How can I sing goodbye, oh sleepyhead? I'm packing you in like I said. Take care of everything. I'm leaving my wedding ring. Don't look for me. I'll get ahead. Remember, darling, don't smoke in bed.
Now, listen to here, she develops this piano sublime. Sadly, there's a little bit of distortion, but that's something we have to live with. Doesn't spoil it for me. So that just gives you an idea of how she's blending these different styles together. And then just when you think, wow, that's amazing, she has this third track called He Needs Me. Listen to this.
He needs me. He doesn't know it, but he needs me. And so no matter where he goes, though he doesn't care, he knows that I'm there. He needs me. I ought to leave him, but he needs me. I know that I ain't very bright, just to tag along. and I'm gonna be his friend or his lover.
Now, one of the things we can detect for this, and one of the reasons I think inadvertently that she became one of the greatest singers and performers of all time, is the fact that she worked as a vocal accompanist. Because I know a young pianist composer who's living in Paris, and during his student years, in order to earn extra money, to pay for his fees, he also accompanied singers from the academy and the music schools. And he said the thing about doing that is knowing when to hold back and giving them space, and knowing when they're struggling and filling in for them, because your job is to make them sound good and to bring them out. And there's great pianists like Gerald Moore, who's in the classical world, was extremely famous for this. But I think some of that has come through here, because you can clearly hear when she's holding back and letting her voice go. And she's so subtle with some of those notes. You think, oh, will they actually even ever sound? It's a beautiful, beautiful song. I'm going to go on now, because we've got a little song called A Little Girl Blue, which is the title track. I should also say His Needs Me is from Arthur Hamilton. Don't know anything about that writer at all. But Little Girl Blue is Richard Rodgers and Lorenz Hart. Have a listen to this. Let's go back and... It's almost as if she's kind of thinking, where am I going to go with this? She's building this very famous melody up, and you think, where is that going to go? So she's developing this idea and again blending everything together. But the next track is one of the great tracks of the whole album, I have to say. You know, this is perfect. Listen to this.
Love me, leave me, and let me be lonely. You won't believe me, but I love you only. I'd rather be lonely than happy with somebody else. You might find the nighttime the right time for kissing. Nighttime is my time for just reminiscing, regretting instead of forgetting with somebody else. There'll be no one unless that someone is you. I intend to be independently blue. I want your love, don't want to borrow. Have it today.
Again, a lovely sound. And this is a natural ability of these, the balancing, where they're just, she's holding her piano back, moving forward to sing into the microphone, so that the voice becomes the vocal thing, and that trio just blends into the background. Now, the first side of the album ends with that very famous song, My Baby Just Cares for Me. I mean, for anyone who maybe never heard this before, you're in for a treat.
My baby don't care for shows. My baby don't care for clothes. My baby just cares for me.
course, this is such a famous song. If you got it's lovely to hear her tapping her foot there on the timing there. And what is really good is the way that Tootie's using that snare drum. Listen to the sound of it.
My baby don't care who knows. My baby just cares for me.
This is a really good example of minimalism. There's almost nothing in it, and yet it's so brilliant. And a completely different change in style of piano playing now. But as the album progresses, we turn over to side 2, if you're still playing on vinyl, of course. And then we have the Count Basie track, Good Bait. And this is also very much like Little Girl Blue, the introduction. Listen to the way she does the introduction. And it's like she's thinking. If you ever want to imagine what thinking out loud is without speaking, well, a musician can do it. And this is Nina. Listen. Oh, whoops. Isn't that perfect? Magic. 1957, December. And this style becomes in the 60s, 10 years later, the things of like songs like Fever, Shirley Bassey and stuff like that. Listen to the beginning of this root of this style. Again, amazing, amazing bass playing. Now a bit of swing. Just minimal drumming that makes everything just so perfect. And all the time, there's classical influences coming in, which just make it so refreshing and so unpredictable. For me, this is actually one of the finest tracks on the album. And sorry I'm talking over it, but for copyright reasons, I think it's the right thing to do. Well, the album goes on, and you have that Plain Gold Ring, You'll Never Walk Alone, and then you have the big hit from the album, because the album wasn't released until nearly 2 years after she recorded it. Well, maybe not quite as much. In February 1959, I think they finally recorded it. And she was so fed up with the record label not releasing it, she actually moved to another label after that. So this is the only album that she did with the label. But she did sell all her rights to the record label for the album, which was $3,000 US, I believe, which is about $30,000. So, you know, somebody in their mid-20s having to teach piano in order to earn a living, that was a fair sum of money. But of course, it bit her in the hand because she became a big star after this. But the track I'm talking about is I Loves You, Porgy, from Heyward and Gershwin. And it's such an incredible rendition that the verdriet is the word we say in Flemish. What can I say? In English, the total bitter sadness of, well, just hear for yourself.
I love you, Porgy, don't let him take me. Don't let him handle me and drive me mad. If you can keep me, I wanna stay with you forever. Yes, I love you, Porgy. Don't let him take me. Don't let him handle me with his hot hands. If you can keep me, I want to stay here with you forever. I've got my man.
I can only recommend getting a hold of a copy of the vinyl or the CDs. I managed to get a CD with the 3 of her first albums, a little pack together. A great, great, great pianist, a great singer, but most of all, a great musician who came together with 2 other fantastic musicians who gave her the space, who weren't trying to show off, who weren't trying to say, look what I can do with the drums. Just a marvellous piece. If you have been, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. But until then, enjoy the music.